the coolest guy, I always call him, Eugene Sottie, is on standby to draw us into those numbers as well. Sottie, great to have you.
Good evening. It's good to be here for our debut show on ABC Sports. Good evening, Ghana. Welcome to the sports segment for today. My business is simple: to present to you the numbers and the stories behind the moves of some of the players. So first off, we are looking at Manchester City's Omar Mamouche. He's from Egypt in Africa here. Although he had the opportunity to also represent Canada, which he declined at some point. Omar Mamouche is an Egyptian international. He's one of the players who are looked at or regarded as prospects for the Egyptian national team, along with Mustafa Mohamed, who are likely to replace Mohamed Salah as the starman for that team. He's moved from Frankfurt to Manchester City. He's had very impressive numbers: 26 games played this season for Frankfurt, 20 goals, 14 assists. That shows he's somebody who has an eye for goal, and he's played a lot of minutes, 2,070 minutes played this season. However, if we are to go into the story, it's not been rosy for him. He started in Egypt, in a club in Egypt in 2016. He made the move to Germany, to Wolfsburg. It wasn't easy for him in the beginning. From Wolfsburg, he had to go on a series of loans. He ended up at St. Pauli, where Daniel Kofi played for a while. Then he ended up in Stuttgart.
Yeah, in fact, I think at a point they labeled him being in the shadow of Mohamed Salah,
exactly,
the Egyptian god. But unfortunately, I think that is getting his niche now in Europe, and those are impressive numbers.
Very
26
impressive.
Games, 20 goals, 14 assists.
Exactly.
I mean, in fact, these numbers don't come easily like that.
That means 34 goal contributions in 26 games. Now we see a very refined player, a very talented player, a very promising player. But initially, that wasn't the case. So from Stuttgart, in fact, I started monitoring Omar Mamouche when he was at Stuttgart. Initially, it was a bit all over the place, nothing concrete to show for his game, just a game of speed, but he couldn't finish opportunities. But from there, then the move came for him to go to Frankfurt. It's at Frankfurt that everything else changed for him. He's been there for about 2-3 years now. Everything has gone right for him. He's begun to show consistency in that team. Remember our game in the AFCON against Egypt? That Iñaki mistake,
yeah.
It was Omar Mamouche who took that shot. If you remember that match, Ghana versus Egypt at the 2024 Africa Cup of Nations, where Ghana was leading by 2-0. It was Omar Mamouche who scored that goal. He's a brilliant player. Funny enough, he wasn't on the radar of City.
I think that it's very important to put into perspective. These stats are for 2024, 2025, yes. And it's time to let's pick another player.
Yeah.
Let's look at another move.
Another player you have to look at is Marcus Rashford. He made his debut for the club in 2016, Manchester United, in the Europa League against FC Midtjylland. He's played over 100. He's played a lot of games for the club. He's from 2016 to now 9 years at the club. We remember that interview where he spoke about the fact that, well, it's time for a new challenge. We also have Ruben Amorim.
He's been a darling boy at Old Trafford right from his infant age. I mean, has played with some of the best, managed by some of the best coaches. And you see his movement to Aston Villa. I think that it was something most people didn't see coming, because this was a boy that was touted a Manchester boy. And for me, it's quite surprising to see him crossing carpet to Aston Villa. But again, I think that falling out of favor with the manager, Amorim, cannot spill anything better than this.
It's true. However, 2 years ago, he was being chased by clubs like Paris Saint-Germain. So on the basis of pedigree, he's falling off. Because if you're being chased by Paris Saint-Germain 2 years ago for big money, around the fee of around 80 to 90 million euros, and now you are going on a loan to Aston Villa. Even though Aston Villa are doing well in the European competition, the Champions League, PSG and Aston Villa are miles apart.
Yeah, and I think with his transfer, he categorically stated that he's excited to join the Aston Villa project because of the manager in question, Unai Emery, and the fact that the two clubs came to a very peaceful agreement in terms of his movement. 70% of his wages will be paid by Aston Villa, and then I think that that's a brilliant move for Marcus Rashford. A lot of people have said that he spent so much time at Old Trafford, and it's time to take that new challenge.
Yeah, it almost felt as if he was overly comfortable at the club. He had outstayed so many managers. He was there with Mourinho, he was there with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he was there with Ralf Rangnick. He had seen about 6-7 managers come and go. And at a point, it felt like he lacked the steam and the necessary motivation, intrinsic motivation to sort of psych himself up and perform every year. At Manchester United, you can count just 2 seasons where he has performed exceedingly well.
Now, so to tell me, you know Oli Watkins is playing for Aston Villa. Now, between Marcus Rashford, these are 2 proper English boys. You think their partnership is going to gel?
I think it's going to be interesting because as we go further, we would realize that it's not only Marcus Rashford they've also got Daniel Marlin, a very interesting player as well. So it changes the whole dynamics of the team. With John Duran leaving as well, it means that a lot of things will change. With John Duran leaving, Oli Watkins, will he be the focal point, or Rashford go onto the right side? Remember, there's also a Leon Bailey from Jamaica as well.
All right, guy, hold on. I think we spent so much time on Marcus Rashford. Let's move to the next player.
There we go. Ivica Kvaratskhelia.
Come on, wait. Take your time. Mention it again.
Ivica Kvaratskhelia.
Wow, that's quite fun, isn't it? Well, let's look at the stats.
Well, if you look at the stats from this season and compare it to the season where they won the Scudetto 2 years ago, he's falling off clearly.
All right.
In 19 games, 5 goals, 4 assists, 1,046 minutes played this season. He's played a lot of minutes, but he's not able to get us the goal. So it means 9 goal contributions out of 19 games for a player who was so crucial for the club in their Scudetto winning season, who was seen as the god of the club instead of Victor Osimhen. He seems to have underwhelmed.
And I think, to be very fair, I think he was one of the people who played a major role in Victor Osimhen's exit at Napoli. Do you agree to that opinion by a lot of people?
I would hasten cautious and I'll tread cautiously on this point. Because we all know what happened with Osimhen. I just feel Victor wasn't appreciated from the beginning. I felt the beginning of the end for Osimhen was when, after the Scudetto winning season, he was seen as the face of the team. I think from there, that's the same thing with Neymar. He began to feel that, well, no matter what he did, he might never get the love he deserved. And so I think from there, he felt it was time to go. It's interesting where he's going, Paris Saint-Germain, because they've been on a project. If you realize, they've brought a lot of French players. They brought Ousmane Dembele back from Barcelona. They brought a player from Lyon to PSG. That's Bradley Barcola. They brought a player from Portugal, from Benfica, which is Goncalo Ramos. They're building a very young team, energetic team, mainly of French players. We've got Zaire Emery in the midfield. However, they've decided to go for a star player in Ivica Kvaratskhelia. He's supposed to lead the face of the team.
So let me know, Kati, when you look at where this gentleman, I mean, is hailing from, his country, I mean, it's not a country people give that chance to excel to this level of world football. What do you make of that in terms of all these movements?
I just think we've gotten to a point in football where a lot of countries are developing in football. The minnows even have players in big teams. For example, he's from Georgia. Liverpool have bought a goalkeeper who would come to the club next season. His name is Giorgio Mamardashvili. That's the goalkeeper of the Georgian national team. He's in Valencia. He'll be moving to Liverpool next season. City are going to buy a player, Kuzanov. He's from Uzbekistan. He's the first player from Uzbekistan to play in the Premier League. So a lot of the time these days, we are seeing a lot of players from relatively unknown countries in terms of football who are not in the traditional European and African teams, making their strides and making moves into the Premier League. And so I think that's good for football, because I think in 2014, Ronaldo was in Georgia to open up an academy. There's a picture where you see Ronaldo with Ivica Kvaratskhelia. A few years later, in the Scudetto winning season, he was there and he played against Ronaldo in a few games. He has played against Ronaldo in other competitions as well. So it's good for football that players from other countries which are not traditional footballing countries make their way into Europe and big teams as well.
All right. So this is another big man.
This is a big one. This move is interesting because of the kind of things that have happened.
All right.
Now, Duran is a player who feels that he has arrived on the scene.
That's quite fine, isn't it?
So he was playing second fiddle to Oli Watkins. Now, Duran came from the United States of America. He was bought from the United States of America and he came to Aston Villa. He was playing second fiddle to Oli Watkins. He felt, if you check his goal per game ratio, you could see that he spent a lot of the time on the bench. But when you compared his goal scoring ratio to that of Oli Watkins, you could see that he was clear of Oli Watkins. And when he came, he scored a lot of worldies as well. So he felt this was a time to make a move because he felt he wasn't appreciated. And also for the fact that there's a lot of money involved.
Okay.
Colombia is not one of the richest countries. It's one of the most impoverished places in the world. He came from a place which is not too rich, Medellin. I don't know if you heard of Medellin before. In the drug business trade, Medellin is a place which is very prominent. That is where Pablo Escobar and other people came from. That is where John Duran comes from. Stark poverty, gun violence, drug abuse, and a whole lot of things come from there. He's managed to crack the code and he's out of the system. He's going to make a lot of money. He likely will change the family situation. It's a move for money and a move for personal
big move. And you look at the club is going to Al Nassr, where Ronaldo himself is playing. And let's just look at his stats: 20 games, 7 goals. Started.
So you see, he started less than 20% of the games. So if you take 5 games, he's not likely to even start one, just under one game. Just 30% of the minutes played, and so it's affected his goal contribution. But if you look at his goal per game ratio, that's where you see the detail in his game. So for me, it's interesting. For a very young guy, he's less than 25 years and he's going all the way to Saudi Arabia. It's huge because you could go and take the money for like 2-3 years and return to Europe. We've seen a lot of players go to Europe for just a season or two and return to Europe. I think he's one of those players. He's just going for the money for a year or two. He might return to mainstream
somebody
Europe.
just whispered to me, João Felix, another big move. What do you make of that, chap?
That's interesting for me from the Chelsea perspective before I go to the Milan perspective, because I think it's surprising to me how João Felix, I feel, is one of the most intelligent players I've ever seen. One of the most intelligent players in the Chelsea team. I think he's the most intelligent. Then Cole Palmer comes, then Christopher Nkunku is the next player. And so for me, I thought it was scandalous and criminal for Enzo Maresca to leave such a player on the bench, even in games where Cole Palmer wasn't showing up. And so if he decided to go on the loan, that's good. Thankfully for Chelsea, it's just a loan move with no obligation to buy. And so it's a straight go and come back. So he's going for 6 months, he'll return. For Milan, I'm struggling to understand what project they are building. We know they are on they want to let Alvaro Morata go and bring Santiago Jimenez from Feyenoord. They already have a Nigerian, Samuel Chukwueze. They have Tammy Abraham on loan from AS Roma. They've got Christian Pulisic as well. They've got a host of other players who are doing so well. Well, I don't know what he's going to do, or I don't know the conversations that Sergio Conceição had with him. Conceição is also Portuguese as well.
Certainly.
So a Portuguese manager. So there's a connection there. So maybe that's it. And I'm surprised because Enzo Maresca had a good conversation with him that motivated him to leave Atletico Madrid and come to Chelsea. Within 6 months, what has changed? That is looking for a way out. Already, Renato Vega has left Chelsea for a loan at Juventus as well. I think Enzo Maresca is not handling the situation very well in terms of the transfers. I think it's up to him to have a look at it and manage the players very well. Otherwise, a lot of unhappy players will leave. We already heard that Christopher Nkunku was as well looking to leave, but certain issues came up, and so because of the pricing of Chelsea's pricing or valuation of him,